How is it going, everyone? An announcement that so many of us were waiting for finally happened yesterday. The sequel to Ghost of Tsushima is here, and it looks like it's expanding Ghost of Tsushima into a bit of a multimedia franchise. We had known that that was going to be happening, but with Yōtei being revealed, this is a franchise Ghost that Sony will very much be emphasizing and putting a lot into. We have a lot to go over in this video, some updates. New York Times is a lengthy post about it, and we'll talk all about it. Obviously, there has been a little bit of pushback, and I think little bit would be putting it a little bit lightly, given that a lot of people are upset about the lack of Jin Sakai. There were more details posted on the PlayStation blog, so we'll go over that in a little bit. But Ghost of Tsushima was widely praised. I personally believe that the Metacritic score, I think it's at like an 83 and an 84, is fairly underrated. I think Ghost of Tsushima is among the best PlayStation exclusives ever released. I just thought the game was fantastic. And the follow-up title, Yōtei, was revealed yesterday at the end of the State of Play event. Best of all, it is going to be released in 2025, so none of this revealing the game 6 years before it's out type of nonsense that Sony sometimes does do. Thankfully, with Yōtei at this point, it is scheduled for a release next year. I would imagine sometime in the fall. It was noted in the New York Times article, when we started working on a sequel to the first question we asked ourselves is, what is the DNA of a Ghost game? It is about transporting the player to the romance and beauty of feudal Japan. Yōtei does take place 300 years after the events of Tsushima, a whole new cast of characters. Inspiration for the new game's setting came during 2 research trips into northern Japan. The Sucker Punch team, which mostly resides in Washington State, visited more than a dozen locations, but it was the image of Mount Yōtei reflected across Lake Toya that inspired awe. Noting, I sat there for 2 hours just staring at the mountain. It was stunning. Inside the park, you have to watch a video telling you about the dangers of bears being in this incredibly beautiful park with jagged cliffs and water, yet all the same time, being aware there were dangerous bears was electrifying. We strive to bring that into the video game, that feeling of danger. One challenge that comes with making an open world game is the repetitive nature of doing the same thing over again. We wanted to balance against that and find a unique experience. And speaking further to it, the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima is the linchpin to a series of tightly choreographed efforts by Sony to transform the series into a larger entertainment franchise. A cinematic version of the original game has been in development for several years and still being worked on. And Herman Hulse did note, from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. When a television series or movie comes out, people are inspired to play again or make friends to play. Obviously, this happened with The Last of Us, a franchise, and this is happening with a lot of PlayStation IPs. Horizon is getting a Netflix adaptation, I believe. God of War is getting a Prime series. There was rumblings about a Days Gone movie. A lot of these video game IPs, and we've been seeing it happen more and more, where they are having adaptations into other media. We also did just see Netflix announce another Cyberpunk project. Netflix announced a Devil May Cry anime. Interest is to see more and more games fall into this category and go venture forth in other media aspects, but to expand an IP, I think it makes a lot of sense, given that while Last of Us 1 is one of my favorite games of all time, a lot of my friends that are total casuals, not big into video games, but will play every now and again, man, did I hear a lot about Last of Us from people that have never played the game before. To expand the allure of an IP, venturing forth into these multimedia projects, I think makes a lot of sense. Now, in the case of Last of Us, it was also a tremendously well-made television series. I don't have that expectation out of every show. It would be great if that is the case, but that's an unrealistic expectation to have. But for Ghost, I think it makes a lot of sense to expand this IP as well. Now, obviously, a lot of discourse, and there was some information released about Ghost of Yōtei on the PlayStation blog, noting, today we are so happy to announce Ghost of Yōtei, the latest game from Sucker Punch, and the introduction of our new hero, Atsu. When we set out to make a new Ghost game, we wanted to maintain the core pillars established in Ghost of Tsushima, playing as a wandering warrior in feudal Japan, offering freedom to explore at your own pace and highlighting the beauty of the world. We also wanted to continue to innovate, to create something fresh but familiar. We looked beyond Jin Sakai's story and the island of Tsushima and shifted our focus to the idea of the ghost itself. and shifted our focus to the idea of the ghost itself. At Sucker Punch, we love origin stories, and we wanted to explore what it could mean to have a hero wearing a ghost mask and uncovering a new legend. This led us to Ghosts of Yōtei, a new protagonist, a new story to unfold, and a new region of Japan to explore. They also continue to note, and it's over 300 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima, well over 300 years, I should put it that way. Our story is set in the land surrounding Mount Yōtei, a towering peak in the heart of Ezo, an area of Japan known as Hokkaido. In present day, in 1603, this area was outside the rule of Japan and was filled with sprawling grasslands, snowy tundras, and unexpected dangers. It's a far cry from the organized samurai clans who lived in Tsushima, and it's a setting for an original story we can't wait to tell. And obviously, it is the first game built ground up for the PlayStation 5, so from a technical standpoint, it should be phenomenal. Now, I've been seeing a lot of discourse regarding Ghosts of Yōtei, and while I don't want to go deep into it in this video, just to quickly note, I think if we are immediately labeling any game with a female protagonist as woke, we have jumped the shark. I agree with a lot of the rhetoric that is put out about video games, and I try not to delve into this too much, but you guys saw my reaction to a game like Concord and that game's atrocious game designs. Look, I loved Jin as a character, and I was very much a proponent of how well developed Jin's entire character arc was, when a lot of the reviewers were pointing out Jin as one of the weakest aspects of Ghosts of Tsushima. I thought Jin was a beautifully executed character, and I was really intrigued to see where his narrative could potentially go after the conclusion of Tsushima, because while Tsushima had a very satisfying end, there was also a point where it could have obviously been continued, and I think everybody saw that. However, going from that into a new character, while it is certainly jarring, Sucker Punch is one of those studios that at this point has earned my goodwill. They have earned your goodwill, in my humble opinion, but, you know, that's for you to decide. But Sucker Punch is one of those studios that game after game, they have dropped phenomenal title after phenomenal title, and I do believe they will drop another phenomenal title with Yōtei. And if they believe that this was the best route to go to tell the narrative that they want to tell and ultimately expand the Ghost IP, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Ultimately, I'll decide as we see more gameplay, as we get more footage, as the game actually releases. I want to proceed with a game like this with cautious optimism, and a lot of the times I'm incredibly pessimistic when it comes to video games in general, because gaming a lot of the times doesn't inspire a lot of optimism. One studio that has inspired a lot of optimism from me is Sucker Punch, so when they want to do it, until they crap all over me, I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Ultimately, I'll decide after the game is out how I feel about it. I'm going to play it regardless. But at this point, I really do believe they have earned my goodwill. It's different from a lot of other studios. While I do think it's a little bit jarring that we're not continuing Jin's story, I imagine that there's gonna be opportunities to connect to Jin's narrative. We can go back and tell Jin's story. There's a lot of options. The only issue that I have, because I've seen a lot of other people throw out, hey, they could do this game and they could ultimately circle back to Jin's story. They could do something like Assassin's Creed Revelations where they have a split protagonist. I don't think they're gonna do that, but I've seen the ideas thrown around. The idea of going back to Jin with a separate game in the future makes a lot of sense to me. Think that would be incredibly compelling and fit the narrative in that way. However, the issue I have with that is that game development cycles have gotten so long. Yōtei has taken 5 years to develop since 2020's Tsushima. Unless we can shorten the game dev cycle somehow, 5 years for another Ghost title and then ultimately hitting Jin's story, that's the issue I would have with circling back in a different timeline where Sucker Punch, yes, Infamous 1 came out in 2009, Infamous 2 came out in 2011, Infamous Second Son came out in 2014. These games were very quickly released. Those days are behind us, and now with that 5-year dev cycle, I just think if we're getting a couple of Ghost titles and then going back to Jin's story, you're talking 10 years, 15 years, and that's a long time. And it's not like Jin is this emblematic character where he's gonna stand the test of time, at least I don't believe so. It's not like Kratos is with God of War, where Kratos is emblematic with God of War. Jin, I really liked him as a character, and I would love to see his character fleshed out, but over the course of, let's say, 10 years, I do think people are gonna be like, alright, we're moving on at this point, or 15 years, so on and so forth, but I'm interested to see where they go. That's just the only point of reservation I have in terms of the idea of going back to Jin's story. It's just like, we're not gonna go back to that in a very, very long time. I'm sure Jin's gonna be referenced in this game, and I'm so curious to see how the narrative is woven together, but Sucker Punch, again, has my goodwill, and I think they should have yours, and it's one of those studios that they haven't burned the goodwill yet. This isn't a Rocksteady, this isn't a BioWare, where you have to go with a lot of skepticism when it comes to their games at this point. Sucker Punch, up until now, has dropped banger game after banger game. Now, that doesn't mean they could totally fumble the bag. I've seen it happen with a BioWare, with a Rocksteady, but at this point, they haven't, so I'm gonna proceed with optimism, and I think they're gonna do a great job. But that'll do it for me. Interested to hear what you guys think in the comments section down below. Very excited for it. At the very least, PlayStation 5 is getting one major first-party title in 2025, and that's better than 2024. It would be great if we had another title to go along with it. That Marvel's Venom game still being rumored. If we get one or two more titles that aren't straight up remasters, that would be incredibly exciting. But that's gonna do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.